The glowing ember of the cigarette crept closer to my lips, crackling softly. Wisps of smoke curled around the edge of the report from last night. I rubbed my forehead, trying to forget the details that hadn't been printed. What a mess. Nathan had been a good cop. Getting taken out that way wasn't right. On the other side of the desk, Harry shook his head. Jesus Christ. They didn't do Nate any service with this shit. I took another drag before smashing the butt in the ashtray between us. Hell of a kid. Can't imagine what his wife and son are going through. Opening a drawer, Harry pulled out a bottle and poured a bit into a pair of glasses. Handing me one, we held the drinks up together. To Nate. The liquor disappeared down his throat. Rest easy, kid. We've got the watch. I didn't taste it as I gulped, but the burn on my tongue was immediate and harsh. Oh, damn, Harry. You make that swill yourself? He shook his head, face twisted and flushed. Colonel V's bourbon is the best there is. I gave a chuckle, sliding the glass to the center of the desk as thin trails ran down to collect at the bottom. I think our definitions of best differ greatly. Heavy footsteps tapped against the tile behind me. How you boys holding up? The deep, gravelly voice of the chief was unmistakable. Harry lit a cigarette, offering one to me. Good as we always are. He made a gesture with his hand, leaving a trail of smoke in its wake. We're, just having a drink in honor of Nate. Care to join? The chief nodded solemnly as Harry poured. He downed the contents of the glass in a smooth, practiced motion. Letting out a breath, he stared into the empty vessel. It's a shame. Nathan was a good cop, and an even better person. But we all come into this knowing the risks. I shook my head, lighting the cigarette Harry had given me. Doesn't make it hurt any less. The stony facade didn't quite reach the chief's eyes. It always hurts. Releasing a heavy sigh, he tossed a small stack of manila folders between the two of us. No rest for the wicked, though. We've still got a job to do. Newest cases for the two of you. Scanning the first few lines of each, I sat back and closed my eyes. Heaviness settling over my body. More missing kids? Chief nodded. The ones we feel for certain aren't runaways. Going back to the first file, I read more carefully, taking another draw from the cig. A 14-year-old boy, last seen heading down to meet up with some friends, missing for 3 weeks. The gravelly voice was on the verge of cracking. After shift, a few of us are headed to Rikers. Informal get-together in Nathan's honor. I nodded between puffs. Thanks, Chief. I'll be there. Harry waved him away, facing the files. Appreciate it, but Susie and I are going out. Things have been a little rough between us, what with her pulling so many late nights recently, and how it's been here with all these cases. First time in months we'll have some time together. The chief nodded, still doing his best to keep stone-faced. Not a problem. He walked away, shoes slapping against the tile. I flipped through the other 2 files. Shaking my head, I set the folders down and leaned back in my chair. Harry stood, dousing his cigarette in the tray. Want a coffee? With closed eyes, I nodded. A few moments later, the savory aroma let me know he had returned. Taking a sip, the hot liquid did its best to calm my nerves. Thanks. Metal creaked against plastic as he sat. With a loud sigh, Harry picked up his stack of cases and began reading. Yours missing kids too? Taking a drag, I nodded through a cloud of smoke. What's your gut say? Harry lit another cigarette, the lighter closing with a high-pitched metallic clink. To our runaways, and I won't even bother with them. This one, though. He held up the schoolbook photo of a clean-cut boy, probably in his mid-teens. Honor roll, perfect attendance, heavily involved in school groups and community activities. Last seen working at some mom-and-pop store. Guy came in and talked to him about a job in construction or something. Hasn't been seen since. How the words rolled off his tongue so casually gave me a chill. Christ, Harry. At least you can try with the other two. I'm sure their families are worried sick. It's the least we can do for them. Standing, he let out a large cloud of smoke before jabbing the butt in the tray. Yeah, I know. Finishing his coffee, he picked up the files and walked off. Muttering to myself, I picked up the coffee and continued reading. As I did, my heart sank. All three had been missing for several weeks. The likelihood any of them could be found was slim. If we had just been given these sooner, then maybe. The rest trailed off in my head. I went back to the first file of the 14-year-old, reading more carefully. Jesus, his birthday had only been a few days before he disappeared. No amount of coffee or cigarettes was going to make that hole in my stomach go away. Opening the next case, I saw it was a boy of 17 that had gone missing. I closed the folder and set it aside. He was old enough to leave home without a word to anyone. As painful as it was, there wasn't much I would be able to do unless some hard evidence was found that pointed towards a crime. More often than not, that was how these had been. These kids were just gone, vanishing into thin air. No leads to even point in a direction to start looking. Third file, 15-year-old boy, missing for 6 weeks now. Reading through, I let out a surprised grunt. He'd also had a birthday a few weeks before he vanished. That's a strange coincidence. Picking up the dossier pictures, I held them next to each other. The resemblance between the two boys was perhaps not striking, but similar. Both had delicate features, roughly the same face shape and longer, fair-colored hair. In the back of my head, the tiny man started punching my brain. Too similar to be a coincidence.